The alarm screamed in the darkness. John McAllister's hand shot out, silencing it before the noise could wake his 8-year-old daughter in the next room. 6 years as foreman at Whitaker Ranch had trained his body to function on 4 hours of sleep and bad coffee. He swung his legs off the narrow bed in the trailer he called home, reached for his jeans, and checked his phone. Flash flood warning. 3 to 6 inches expected. The air outside felt wrong the moment he stepped through the door. Heavy. Electric. The kind of pressure that settles into your bones before something serious happens. West Texas weather didn't mess around. When it decided to rain, it made up for months of drought in a single night. His pickup rattled across the ranch roads, headlights carving tunnels through the pre-dawn blackness. The main barn appeared like a ghost in the distance, its metal roof already drumming with the first drops. Ray Walker stood near the equipment shed, securing tarps. Travis Collins was checking the stable doors. "Horses are in, cattle secured in the south pasture." Ray's voice carried over the rising wind. Then he hesitated. "All except Diesel." John's jaw tightened. "Where?" Travis shifted his weight, rain starting to darken his shirt. "Broke through the east fence yesterday afternoon. Last I saw, he was down in the lower pasture near the creek bed. I was going to bring him back, but..." The rest of the sentence disappeared under a crack of thunder that felt like a physical blow. John didn't need to hear more. The lower pasture sat in a natural bowl where water collected from 3 directions during heavy rain. If Diesel was down there now, trapped in rising water and deep mud, an $85,000 breeding bull could become a dead animal in less than an hour. "I'm going." Ray grabbed his arm. "In this. John, we can't even see 20 feet. "Then I'll drive by memory." He pulled free, already moving toward the F-250 with the high clearance. "You stay here. If something happens to me, you're in charge." The rain became a wall within minutes. John leaned forward, squinting through a windshield the wipers couldn't keep up with, following fence lines he knew by instinct more than sight. The radio crackled with Ray's voice warning him about rising water on the north side, but John was already committed. The truck hit standing water, 6 inches that quickly became 8, and he shifted into low gear, feeling the tires fight for grip. Then the headlights found him. Diesel stood chest-deep in what had been a dry creek bed 2 hours ago. His massive black body, 2,000 pounds of pure genetic value, was sunk in mud up to his haunches, and every movement to free himself only drove him deeper. His eyes showed white in the artificial light, nostrils flaring with panic. John stopped the truck at a safe distance. Getting closer would mean getting stuck himself. He grabbed rope, took a breath, and stepped into the current. The water hit him like a cold fist, muddy and moving faster than it looked. He waded forward, speaking in a low, steady voice that probably couldn't be heard over the storm, but that kept his own nerves calm. "Easy, Diesel. Easy, boy. We're gonna get you out." Getting the rope around those massive horns without spooking him took patience John didn't know he still had. One wrong move and a terrified bull that size would thrash and break both their necks. But the loop caught, held, and John backed toward the truck, already calculating angles. Direct pull would drag Diesel sideways into deeper water. He needed leverage. A fence post 15 feet away, barely visible through the rain, gave him what he needed. Basic ranch mechanics his father had taught him when he was 12. Rope around the post, creating a pulley effect, then back to the truck's tow hitch. He climbed into the cab, shifted into reverse, and let the tension build gradually. The rope went taut. The truck engine strained. For a terrible moment, nothing happened, and John thought he'd miscalculated, thought he'd have to watch the water rise over Diesel's back while he stood there helpless. Then the mud released with a sound like a giant taking a breath. Diesel's back legs came free. The bull stumbled, caught himself, and John quickly repositioned, using the headlights to create a path toward higher ground. Step by careful step, the animal followed the light, instinct overriding panic, until finally they reached solid earth near the main paddock. By the time John secured Diesel in a dry shelter and called for the ranch veterinarian, the sky was beginning to lighten. He stood there covered in mud, hands raw from rope burns, exhausted in a way that went deeper than muscles. Ray appeared with a towel and questions John didn't want to answer. "Whitaker's going to hear about this. I don't need credit. John's voice came out rougher than he intended. I just need this ranch to keep running so my daughter has a roof over her head. What he didn't know was that someone had already heard about it. From the second-floor window of the main ranch house, James Whitaker had watched the entire rescue through binoculars. He'd watched a man risk his life in a storm, without hesitation, without witnesses, without expecting anything in return. And standing there in his office as dawn broke over the ranch, James Whitaker reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a black metal card that weighed more than credit cards should weigh. He made a decision that would test everything he thought he understood about loyalty, character, and the true meaning of wealth. John was in the equipment shed hanging wet rope to dry when Ray found him. The foreman didn't look up from his work, hands still sore from the morning's rescue, mud still caked under his fingernails despite washing them twice. Boss wants to see you. Tell him Diesel's fine. Doc Lawson checked him. No injuries. Ray's silence made John pause. In 6 years working this ranch, James Whitaker had spoken to him maybe a dozen times. The man ran $1 million cattle operation, but kept his distance, reserved in a way that felt intentional rather than cold. He didn't do small talk. He didn't hand out praise. He simply expected excellence and paid fairly for it. He said, "Now, John." Something in Ray's tone made it clear this wasn't optional. John looked down at himself. Jeans still damp, shirt streaked with dried mud, boots leaving tracks everywhere he walked. "I'm a mess." He said, "Come as you are." The walk to the main house felt longer than it should have. John had only been inside twice before, both times for paperwork signings when he'd first taken the foreman position. The building was restored 1920s architecture with original hardwood floors that creaked under his boots and tall windows that overlooked the entire ranch property. He climbed the stairs to the second floor, knocked on the office door, and heard a voice tell him to enter. James Whitaker stood by the window, early 60s, silver hair, wearing expensive clothes that somehow still looked practical. His eyes were sharp in a way that made John feel measured and found wanting. "Mr. McAllister, sit down." John remained standing. "Sir, I'd rather not track mud on your furniture. I watched what you did this morning." The words hung in the air between them. John had no response prepared for that. "Diesel is valuable to this operation." "I couldn't let—" Whitaker cut him off. "Do you know how much that bull is worth?" "About $85,000, sir, plus his genetic value for breeding. Try closer to $200,000 when you factor in his offspring projections over the next 5 years. Whitaker turned from the window, his gaze steady. "You went into rising water, in a severe storm, in the dark, to save him." John met his eyes without flinching. It was the right thing to do. The silence that followed felt weighted with something John couldn't identify. Whitaker studied him the way a jeweler might study a stone under different light, looking for flaws or perhaps their absence. "How long have you worked here, Mr. McAllister?" 6 years, sir." "In those 6 years, how many times have you asked me for a raise, a bonus, any kind of recognition?" John shifted his weight slightly. "Never, sir." "Why not?" "Because you pay fair wages. You treat people with respect. That's more than most ranchers do." Whitaker reached into his desk drawer. What he pulled out caught the morning light streaming through the windows. A sleek black card, metal rather than plastic, heavy in a way that suggested substance beyond its size. No visible numbers. Just a name embossed in silver. James Whitaker. "Do you know what this is?" John recognized it from magazines and news articles about the ultra-wealthy. "A credit card, sir." "Not just any credit card. This is what they call a black card. No spending limit, no questions asked. I can buy a car with it, a house, a plane ticket to anywhere in the world." Whitaker held it between 2 fingers, letting it catch the light. "I'm giving it to you." The words didn't make sense at first. John's brain stumbled over them like a man tripping in the dark. "Sir, I can't." "For 72 hours, 3 days, starting right now." John stared at the card, then at the man offering it. This had to be some kind of test, some elaborate way of proving a point he didn't understand yet. Rich people didn't just hand over unlimited spending power to ranch foremen who smelled like mud and river water. "Mr. Whitaker, I appreciate the gesture, but I don't need charity." This isn't charity, Mr. McAllister. This is gratitude. Whitaker's voice carried a weight that made John listen harder. You saved something irreplaceable to me. I'm offering you something irreplaceable in return. Freedom. Freedom? For 72 hours, you have access to resources most people will never touch in their entire lives. You can do anything, go anywhere, buy anything. He extended the card further. I want to see what you do with it. The honesty in that statement caught John off guard. This wasn't about gratitude at all. It was about curiosity, about watching what a man did when handed temporary power. This is a test. Whitaker didn't deny it, if you want to call it that. But there's no wrong answer, Mr. McAllister. If you want to fly to Las Vegas, stay in a penthouse, eat at 5-star restaurants, do it. If you want to buy a new truck, buy it. If you want to do nothing and hand it back in 3 days, that's fine too. He paused. No judgment, no expectations, just curiosity about character. John's mind raced through possibilities and consequences. His daughter needed school supplies. His parents' house had a leaking roof his father kept trying to patch himself, despite being 65 years old. His brother Miguel was drowning in medical debt from a construction accident that had left him unable to work for months. His sister Anna had been saving for 3 years to afford a nursing program she desperately wanted to take. And this man was offering him unlimited resources for 72 hours. What if I abuse it? Whitaker's expression didn't change. Then I'll know who you are, and so will you. John reached out slowly, his hand still bearing rope burns from that morning. The card was heavier than he expected, cold against his palm. It felt like holding someone else's life, someone else's power borrowed for a moment. The clock starts now. I'll see you in 3 days, Mr. McAllister. John walked out of that office in a daze. Ray was waiting by the equipment shed, pretending to check inventory, but clearly wanting to know what had happened. When John showed him the card, Ray's eyes went wide. Holy hell! Do you know what you could do with that? John looked at the black card in his hand, then toward the horizon where the storm was finally clearing. His first thought wasn't about mansions or sports cars. It was about his daughter's school registration form sitting on his trailer's kitchen table with a balance due. It was about his mother's voice last week saying the roof was leaking again, but not to worry, they'd manage. It was about Miguel's hospital bill threatening to take his house. Yeah, John said quietly. I do. That evening, after his daughter Emily fell asleep, John sat at his small kitchen table and stared at the card. He picked up his phone and made the first call. His mother answered on the third ring. Johnny? Everything okay? Mom, I need Dad's contractor friend's number, the one who does roofing. Honey, you know we can't afford... I'm taking care of it. Just trust me. The second call went to Miguel. His brother sounded exhausted when he picked up. John, it's late. What's wrong? How much do you still owe on those hospital bills? The ones from your accident. $42,000. Why? I'm gonna take care of it. I'll explain later. The third call was to his sister Anna. She was between shifts at the gas station, voice thick with fatigue. Johnny, I only have 5 minutes before that community college nursing program you wanted to take. The one you couldn't afford. I want you to register tomorrow. Silence on the line. Then carefully, what's going on? Something good happened. For once, something good happened and I'm using it the right way. When he hung up, John looked at the card again. He hadn't bought himself anything. He didn't plan to. The clock was ticking on 72 hours that would reveal exactly who John McAllister was when handed the keys to someone else's kingdom. He hoped James Whitaker would understand what he was about to see. The morning sun hit John's childhood home with the kind of harsh light that revealed every flaw. Faded paint, sagging fence posts, a roof that had been patched so many times it looked like a quilt made of different colored shingles. His father had built this house 40 years ago with his own hands, and it showed both the pride of that work and the slow erosion of time and limited money. Mary Lou Carter opened the door in her bathrobe, surprise crossing her face when she saw her son on a Wednesday morning. Johnny, shouldn't you be at work? Took the day off. John looked past her to where his father, Thomas Reynolds, sat in the living room, already dressed despite it being barely 7 a.m. Old construction workers never learned to sleep in. Where's Dad? Thomas appeared in the doorway, walking with the slight limp from an injury that had ended his roofing career 15 years earlier. John, something wrong? The roof. Mom said it's leaking again. His father's jaw set in that stubborn way John knew too well. I patched it last month, it's fine. Dad, you're 65 years old. You shouldn't be climbing around on roofs anymore. I've been fixing things my whole life. I'm not about to start paying someone else to... A white truck pulled up outside, Hank Miller Roofing painted on the side in bold letters. John's mother looked from the truck to her son, understanding starting to dawn in her eyes. Johnny, what's going on? They're replacing the entire roof. Today. Thomas stepped onto the porch, his voice dropping. Son, we can't afford that kind of work. A new roof costs... It's taken care of. Where did you get money for... John met his father's eyes. Dad, please, just let me do this. Something in his voice, or maybe in his face, made Thomas stop arguing. The older man studied his son for a long moment, seeing something there that made him nod slowly. Okay, son. Okay. Mary Lou's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. She touched John's arm, her hand small and weathered. You're a good man, Johnny. Your grandfather would be so proud. John stayed and watched the crew unload materials, tear off old shingles, lay down new waterproofing. He didn't tell his parents about the card or explain where the money came from. He just watched his mother stand in the yard with her hands pressed to her mouth and his father pretend he had something in his eye. The second stop was Memorial Medical Center on the west side of Midland. John found Miguel in the billing office, his brother's voice raised in frustration as he argued with a clerk behind bulletproof glass. I set up a payment plan 2 months ago. I've been making payments every week. The clerk's voice came through the speaker with that particular brand of bureaucratic exhaustion. Sir, according to our records, you missed the last 2 payments. If you can't bring the account current, we'll have no choice but to send it to collections. Miguel slammed his palm on the counter. I had to choose between paying you and keeping the electricity on for my kids. John stepped forward. What's the total balance? The clerk looked up, noticing him for the first time. And you are? His brother. What's the total balance on this account? She checked her computer screen. $42,750. John pulled out the black card and set it on the counter. I'm paying it. All of it. Right now. Miguel spun around, his face a mixture of shock and confusion. John, what are you doing? You can't... That's $40,000. Can you process this? John kept his eyes on the clerk, who was staring at the card like she'd never seen one before, which she probably hadn't. Black cards weren't something that showed up at hospital billing windows in Midland, Texas. Yes, sir. Absolutely, sir. Let me get my supervisor. Miguel grabbed John's arm, pulling him away from the window. Where did you get that kind of money? Did you rob a bank? Are you in some kind of trouble? It's complicated, but it's legal and it's temporary, and I want to use it for this. John, that's $42,000. You got hurt working construction. You were providing for your family. You don't deserve to lose everything because you can't afford hospital bills from an accident that wasn't your fault. John's voice came out harder than he intended. Let me do this, Miguel. His brother's eyes went wet. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Just take care of your kids. And when you're back on your feet, you pay it forward to someone else who needs help. The supervisor came out, processed the payment with shaking hands, and printed a receipt showing a 0 balance. Miguel stared at it like it was written in a foreign language. For the first time in 8 months, John watched his brother's shoulders drop from up around his ears, watched tension drain out of him like poison leaving a wound. In the parking lot, Miguel hugged him so hard John's ribs ached. Neither of them said anything. There wasn't anything that needed saying. The third stop was Midland College Community Campus. Anna Brooks stood outside the registration office in her gas station uniform, checking her phone every few seconds. She looked up when John pulled up, confusion on her face. Johnny, what's this about? I'm supposed to start my shift in an hour. You're not going to your shift today. What? I can't just skip work. You're registering for the nursing program. Today. Anna laughed, but it came out nervous and uncertain. Johnny, I can't afford that. We've talked about this. Maybe in another year or two if I can save enough. I'm paying for it. The laughter died. Your what? Tuition, books, fees, lab costs, parking pass, all of it. You're starting next semester. His sister stepped back, shaking her head. That's almost $8,000. You don't have that kind of money. Nobody in our family has that kind of money. I do right now, and I want to use it for this. Why? John thought about how to explain it. Because you've been putting your life on hold for 3 years, working 2 jobs and barely sleeping, trying to save enough for a program that should be accessible to people who want to help others. Because you're smart and caring, and you'd make an incredible nurse. Because I can help you right now, so I'm going to. Anna covered her mouth with both hands, tears spilling over her fingers. I can't. Johnny, I can't accept this. Yes, you can. Come on. They walked into the registration office together. The counselor looked up from her computer, ready with the standard speech about payment plans and student loans, but John just handed over the black card and said to charge everything his sister needed. An hour later, Anna Brooks walked out officially enrolled, holding a receipt that proved she was starting the nursing program in 6 weeks. She hugged John in the parking lot, her voice muffled against his shoulder. I'm going to make you so proud. You already do. The fourth and final stop wasn't dramatic. It was Target on a Tuesday afternoon with his daughter Emily. They walked through aisles of school supplies slowly, Emily's small hand in his, and John watched her gravitate toward the cheapest options out of habit. Generic crayons, plain notebooks, the backpack on clearance. Em, you can get the good ones. She looked up at him with those big brown eyes that reminded him so much of her mother. But they cost more, Daddy. I know. Get them anyway. The hesitation on her face broke his heart. She'd learned too young to measure her wants against his wallet. But slowly, tentatively, she picked the 64-count Crayola set instead of the store brand. The backpack with her favorite character instead of the plain one. The lunchbox that lit up when you opened it. At the checkout, John added a tablet for her schoolwork and winter clothes because she was growing fast and the old ones were getting too small. Emily watched the total climb on the register screen, her little face getting more and more worried. Daddy, this is too much. John knelt down to her level right there in the checkout line. Emmy, listen to me. You know how I'm always telling you to work hard and be kind to people? She nodded. Sometimes when you do those things, good things happen. And when good things happen to you, you take care of the people you love first. That's what I'm doing right now. Is something good happening? Yeah, baby. Something good. She hugged him tight enough that he felt it in his chest, in that place where worry lived. The cashier smiled at them, and John realized he didn't care that people were watching. He didn't care that he'd spent maybe $60,000 in 2 days. He hadn't bought himself a single thing. That night, after Emily fell asleep clutching her new tablet, John made one final trip. Not to a luxury store or a car dealership. To the H-E-B grocery store on Midland Drive. He filled 3 shopping carts with non-perishables for his parents, a month's worth of groceries for Miguel's family, and food for the church pantry his mother volunteered at every Thursday. The checkout clerk looked confused when the total hit $1,500. Sir, are you sure about this? I'm sure. He delivered the groceries himself. His mother cried. Miguel's wife, Linda, hugged him so tight he thought his ribs might crack. The church secretary kept asking if he'd won the lottery. By the time John returned to his trailer on the evening of day 3, exhaustion had settled into his bones. The black card sat on his kitchen table, lighter now somehow, or maybe he'd just gotten used to its weight. He hadn't traveled anywhere exotic, hadn't bought a new truck or expensive clothes or any of the things a person might fantasize about if handed unlimited money for 72 hours. He'd built a roof, erased debt, created a future, fed families. Tomorrow morning, he would return the card to James Whitaker. But tonight, for the first time in 6 years, John McAllister slept without the weight of other people's needs pressing down on his chest. He'd done something good with something temporary. He'd made choices he could live with. Whatever test James Whitaker had designed, John hoped he'd passed. Not for the reward, but for the confirmation that he was still the man he believed himself to be. John knocked on the office door exactly 72 hours after walking out with the black card. His hands were clean this time, his shirt pressed, but he felt more nervous than he had in rising water with a panicked bull. James Whitaker looked up from his desk. "Mr. McAllister, come in." John crossed the room and set the card on the polished wood between them. "Thank you, sir, for the opportunity." Whitaker picked up the card, then reached for his computer. His eyes moved across the screen, reading transaction history. John watched his face, trying to read what he saw there. The silence stretched. Hank Miller Roofing, Memorial Medical Center, Midland College, Target, H-E-B Grocery, no hotels, no restaurants, no luxury purchases. Whitaker's jaw tightened. He scrolled further, then sat back. When he finally looked up, something had changed in his expression. "You spent $63,000. "Yes, sir." "On other people?" "Yes, sir." Whitaker stood, walked to the window. When he spoke, his voice came out rougher. "I've given this test to 3 people in my life. Business partners. People I thought I knew." He turned around. "One bought a sports car. One gambled in Vegas. One tried to steal from me." He paused. "You're the first person who didn't buy yourself a single thing." John didn't know what to say. Your parents' roof was leaking. Your brother drowning in debt. Your sister couldn't afford education. Your daughter needed supplies. Whitaker's voice carried weight. You had unlimited resources and used them to build futures. They're my family, sir. Yes. Whitaker nodded slowly. They are. He returned to his desk, opened a drawer, pulled out an envelope. "This is a new contract, Mr. McAllister. Partner, not foreman. 20% ownership, full benefits. A salary that will let you care for your family without borrowing anyone's card." John stared at the envelope. "You proved something I've been trying to learn my whole life." Whitaker's voice was quiet. "Real wealth isn't what you have. It's what you do when you have it." The new roof on his parents' house gleamed in afternoon sun. John stood in the yard watching his father work in the garden without that familiar wince of pain. His mother hummed in the kitchen, a sound he hadn't heard in years. Miguel had returned to construction, his debt cleared and confidence restored. He'd started his own small business and last week hired his first employee. "Paying it forward," Miguel had said. "Just like you told me." Anna was 3 months into nursing school, exhausted but glowing with purpose. She'd sent John a photo in scrubs outside the medical center where she did clinical rotations. The same hospital that once threatened to destroy Miguel's life now represented Anna's future. Emily had aced her first semester, her tablet filled with homework assignments. She'd stopped asking if things cost too much. She'd started believing good things could happen. John had signed the partnership papers. 20% of Whitaker Ranch belonged to him now, and the responsibility felt heavier than any black card. But James Whitaker treated him as an equal, asking his opinion on breeding decisions and expansion plans, trusting his judgment beyond livestock management. One evening, Whitaker called him to the office. The older man poured 2 whiskeys and handed one to John. "I've been thinking about what happened, about that test." John took the glass. "Sir?" "I gave you power to see what you'd do with it. You showed me something I'd forgotten." Whitaker looked out at the ranch. "Money is just a tool. Character is what matters. And character isn't something you fake when nobody's watching." They stood in silence, watching sunset over land they now shared. "You know what the real test was, Mr. McAllister." "What's that, sir?" "Whether you'd remember who you were when you had everything. You did. That's rarer than you think." John thought about the black card in his drawer at home, returned but never forgotten. A reminder that true wealth had nothing to do with credit limits and everything to do with choices made when power was temporary. He'd passed a test he hadn't known he was taking, and in doing so, he'd changed not just his own life, but the lives of everyone he loved. That was the real legacy of those 72 hours.